Okay, I feel awkward, so I'm just gonna keep talking. Um, so if anyone was at the last GAC, I think that we had um, before COVID happened, I did a wood burning class then. It's kind of brief, and they had these like little circles um, that look like this. I just had we like me and Vladma just some different stencils that you could do. So it was pretty fun, I think. I wanted to talk about how I think this is a really good, easy craft to do um, for beginners. I think the only thing you really need to have is patience and a very slow and steady hand. This is not a kind of craft that is easy to accomplish very quickly, very well. Um, so, with that in mind, I have here some different stencils that I used on Main's knighting scroll that I wanted to show you just as an idea of time. But I'm going to switch this over to the view where you're actually going to see me work. Okay.
Can, every, can everyone see kind of what I have going on?
Yes.
Okay. So here's some stencils. When you're looking at doing stencils, that wasn't one. I probably advise beginners to do something very silhouetted, something that's all black or all white. This is the stencil that I have going on today, which is a monster hunter thing for Cody. This is a very, very complicated, very time consuming pattern just because there's so many individual shapes here. Other things that I did, the Torgan is this here, just silhouettes of birds. And these are very, very easy because you just have to do the outline and then fill in the middle. That time-wise probably takes a couple hours to do each one. I also have these little North Star pentagrams that I also used in the middle of like the bird's wings and then the body. And I have different sizes there because I needed to essentially print them until I got to a size that fit what I needed it to do. As other people have seen that for woodworking, I created this pattern for Torgan. And as you can see, this becomes very, very complicated. And this took me probably hundreds of hours to do something like this. And then the bottom one is just the same. If anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to just pop in as I'm talking if you have questions. So with that, I wanted to talk about how much this stuff costs. At Michael's, you can get a very beginner wood burn pen. Looks like this. And I like this one because it has a very bendable cord. Tim, my roommate, has a wood burning pen and his cord is a lot more rigid, so it's hard to like pivot the pen. So if you're looking at pens, keep that in mind. There's a bunch of different um, of these tips that come in them. Let's see, these are probably standard. And as you can see, how well that's coming up on screen. But this has like a checkered pattern, and then this is kind of like a soccer ball. I've never used these. As you can see how pristine these are. I don't know when you would use these, but you have them in the kit. The two that I primarily use is this kind of really beveled, pointy one. And down here, I have made. Oh, okay. Down here, I'm getting feedback, Cody. Okay. So this is my most versatile one, but I do use this one for like really intense like shading when I have to do something like this and fill this in. That's when I'll use this kind of one because I can get a really uh, dark shade super fast. But if I don't want to use this one at all, I can still use this kind of pointy one to do shading. It just takes a little bit longer, but it means I have to switch out my tips less. So again, your wood burning kit is $32 at Michael's. If you get like a 40% off coupon, you could get it for less than 20. This piece of wood here was only about $10, and it's about an 8x10, and it's really nice because it's got a bevel on the other side, but I'm not going to show the other side yet. And you can do freehand if you wanted to draw something and then burn it. You can do it that way. I like to print things off and then stencil it on because I know exactly what I'm going to do. I can kind of freehand and do some artistic liberties once I have my idea down. But like with this one, this was kind of a pattern that I found online, but it only was like to here. And so I had to kind of make it seamless so it went across the whole thing, and was the size that I wanted it. So I did a lot of drawing on this first before. Can y'all mute? Someone shuffling around. I don't know how to mute people. Well,
I got it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about like stenciling or have like neat ideas if you're going to do any art, any wood burning? Okay. No. So other than supplies, I usually have one of these. This helps me switch out my wood burning tips while they're hot. So that way I don't have to turn my wood burning tool off and then wait until it's cooled down to switch them out. So I usually use one of these little guys, and it could be like any set of pliers as long as you can grab the tip and turn it and then set it down on something that's not going to burn. Other tools I have are like my pencil is pretty common for the stencil, or if I need to fill in a stencil. Also, one of these guys, this is graphite paper. This is an 18 by 24 inch big piece of graphite paper, so it's really, really big. You can reuse these things. You can cut them down. Like for the stencil, I just had this so I didn't have like a huge sheet weighing me down. You can also make your own graphite paper if you wanted to. If you didn't want to go out, you could just take a piece of paper, cover one side with charcoal or pencil, held down on its side, and you could basically make your own graphite paper. But that's time consuming, so I don't do that. So with your stencil, you're going to take tape. Also have here as one of the supplies. I don't think that tape is holding anymore. And you're going to decide how you're going to want to place it onto the thing. And once you tape it down, that you're not going to want to lift the tape up at all. Like once you tape it down, you can lift this up and see underneath it, but you're not going to want to peel the tape off. For beginners, I would say one thing you should do, like I have here, is just play around with your wood tips first and get acclimated to how it feels when you're doing it. So I have, this is the wood tip that I use, that kind of sharp, pointy one. And I just did a bunch of different things with this tip to show you all the things that this tip can do. You can do dots with this tip. You can do fine lines. Down here, I have different like weights, like just holding it down. If I just do something really, really fast, I'm going to get something very, very light like that. If I hold it down for a little bit longer, I'm going to have more of a darker line. And if I wanted it really, really dark, I could just hold it there for longer until you get something like that. And like I said, here is like different shading that I've been able to do with it, or just blackening it out, because I can go in and make this dark just by using the side of this bevel. You can do like curves with this, which is why I said having that cord be really, really bendable, flexible is nice for when you need to turn, since Tim's is a lot more. You can see here the difference in my cord versus his cord. So this is going to turn not very well. It's going to be very, very rigid, which makes it hard. So yeah, I would say practice with your tips and see what you like, because it's a very permanent art. Once you touch it, it's pretty much where it's going to be. So with that, as I have the stencil, and I'll show you, with this like 10 by 8, I decided I was going to have mine at like kind of a tip like this. So once I situated where I wanted it to be and I taped it down, I just started drawing right over everything that I wanted to transfer on. Now with graphite paper, there's going to be like two kind of sides to the graphite paper, and I don't know if it's very visible on screen, but one of these is like very, very shiny, kind of gray, and the other side is more of a shiny black. And so this black actually has that film of graphite on it. So when you press down and drawing, it's going to transfer that right on. So as an example, with this pattern, I already drew it on the other side, and it took about an hour and a half just to transfer this on. But I wanted to show you how it kind of works when I'm going around these edges. This. And you can see how that transferred onto the other side. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time doing this bit because I already did do this bit. But yeah, just drawing this out, it took me about an hour and a half. And once I got the edging around all of them, I also went through and did kind of a scratch like this, because I wanted to make sure that once I saw the pattern and I'm wood burning, that I know exactly what's supposed to be black and what's not supposed to be. So that's how it kind of comes through on the other end. Does anyone have any questions? And since I have the tape down, I can always do this and go right back because it's going to fall exactly how it was taped down. But if I was to move this tape and I was only halfway done with the stencil, it would be almost impossible for me to line the stencil up correctly. And it can be done, but I just really like once you start with your stencil, don't lift up the tape until you're completely done. Otherwise, you're just basically going to have to freehand and look at it and figure out what you're missing. So here's what I started yesterday, wood burning here. And I always have my stencil that I'm working on as my reference so I can see what I need to do as far as doing it. But you should be able to see the light gray is where I haven't wood burned anything yet. And all of this probably took me about 2.5 to 3 hours. So it's really not a lot as far as where it's, I would say, probably half completed at about 3 hours for something this complicated. Um, just because it has so many different individual pieces. And I will be like pivoting this and jumping all over as you see, like none of these things are officially done because I will kind of go and do a line here, do a line over here, and do a line over here until I pivot it. Because when I'm doing a line, I want to make sure that my tip is angled in where the dark parts are going to be. I don't want to start a line like this on the outside because just the heat from my gun can start to burn the parts of the wood that are not supposed to be burned at all. So where I would start is like something like over here. Like that. Because now I know that, with my stencil here, this whole thing is going to be black. So if I just go in and put burn here, it's not going to matter because that's all going to be black. Anyone have any questions? That's actually a good question. This is a base wood. This is pretty common at Michael's, and this burns actually pretty well. It's a very dry wood. It doesn't have a lot of moisture in the wood. So when I was doing Torgen's knighting scroll, I think that was actually cedar. And because cedar actually has more moisture in it, when I would burn, some of that moisture would like seep up and would like become wet where I was wood burning. So basswood and pine, I think, are really, really good. Because they have such a light surface anyways, there's going to be a lot more contrast with something like a lighter wood anyways. Pine is really easy to come by. You could go to like any lumber place and find, a chunk of pine and, practice stuff on it. I just went to Michael's to get this, just because it has like a really nice finished edge already and I didn't have to do anything. With that, when it comes to wood too, you're not going to want to stain or paint it before you do any wood burning. I think that should be like a natural thing. But I kind of came into that question myself, because I wanted, like, originally I wanted Torgen's wood to be a lot whiter. And I was thinking about doing a wash on it before I wood burned, but then I would just be burning paint and that would be like not good for my lungs. So, any other questions?
I noticed you were doing small little strokes. Is that pretty much about average?
Yeah. I mean, once I get more in it, like in a groove of how I feel about this thing, I think this happens every time I would burn. Because it's so permanent, I get really self-conscious about if I place it wrong, or in a bad angle. So I kind of like to do it really, really small. Uh, Last night when I got into a groove, I pretty much did this whole line in one movement. But when you're wood burning, and especially with this line, you can create like a groove in the wood. And sometimes with the wood, if you're going along in the wood grain, you might get like caught up in the grain of the wood and you're trying to turn and it gets like kind of choppy or something like that. So I get kind of nervous until I have like an hour of feeling more confident. I can kind of go back in if my line isn't exactly straight or how I want it to be, or push it in closer. One thing that I've noticed that I do, I think both wood burning and painting, um, is try to stabilize my hand. Like I'm always kind of anchoring my wrist so that I have like a pivot point. This becomes really good if you're doing drawing, like anything, and you don't want to get, the charcoal on your hand. You can actually just anchor yourself like this. But when you're doing like painting or something that's wet and you have to anchor your arm away from it. So that's kind of been my things. He'll try to go into a straight line. But it's very slow. So, I mean, as long as you have patience and time, it's not it's not a fast process. I can actually, and depending on how I'm tipping this too, if I wanted to do like a line, I could use the entirety of the length of this just at an angle. But if I wanted to really just use the tip of this, I'm going to hold this straight up and down, which I don't do a lot. But if I wanted to do shorter lines, I would tip it a little bit higher. So what I was doing there is tipping this up like this to see the curve of this because I could tell that it was like a little bit choppy right here. So I just went back over that to make that a little bit more smooth. That's part of my OCD nature in art. And no one's going to notice that but me, but I could kind of see that little kind of choppy area. But because I have some leeway here with the image, I can do that. Is wood burning anything that someone is interested in learning more about or doing more with?
I've had a set of pyrography pens on one of my wish lists for a long time, but I haven't had time to get into the craft.
I'm interested in how one would judge A&S that's wood burnt.
Uh, I think if I was judging it, I can definitely see the different techniques that people are doing with wood burning. Um, I don't know if you can notice on screen, but there's a little bit of a shaded area right here from when I had my pen tipped like over it like this. And I think I would take a little file like Cody has this very triangular, very, very small little file that I don't have today, but you can just file that and kind of fix some of the mistakes there. I would look and see how even the lines are. Like, for example, this here, is this a smooth line? Was it choppy, especially when you have these other curved lines next to it? Does it look like it's supposed to be parallel, or does it look like it's, uh, I don't know if that makes sense, but there's things in the control of the pen when you're doing it that I think I would look at. The scope of things, like certainly something like this, just right off the bat, if I see something like this, I'm going to know this took a wild amount of time. I would say entirely, this will probably take me 10 hours. 1.5 just for doing the stencil. I spent 3 last night, and then anywhere from another 3 to 5 hours just finishing all of the stuff. Whereas, something just like a silhouette like this would still take some time, but it would probably only be half of that amount of time or a quarter of that amount of time as this would. Um, so how complicated is it? Is it a circle? Is it a square? Because I can do a square quite fast. Pretty freehand. But I think I would be looking at how well are these lines? Did you fix anything? Um, and you can do gradient stuff with this. Like the pens that are at Michael's now actually has a dial on it that you can turn it down and have different temperatures on your pen. So you can actually have more of a control in your gradients. Um, but my pen it's either hot or it's not. Has anyone done any wood burning before?
Sorry, I've done very, very little.
Did you have what were like your um struggles that you had with it? Like, would you continue doing it? Do you need um, other help doing it? Like, what did you find as you were doing it?
So the burning I did was just the table set up at Dungeon Day. Um,
This last dungeon day.
yeah. I didn't do, or was it this last one? I think it was this last one. I didn't do a whole lot because there just wasn't time.
Right.
I don't believe I have the tools to do it. Like I have a lot of random crafting stuff, so I might have a cheap one somewhere. But I don't believe I have the like wood burner. Um, and I guess my biggest thing though is not knowing what to do. Like I don't have the creative sometimes.
I mean, you can do all kinds of things. You can do words, images. I think wherever your idea originally starts from, I would just say whatever it is, look up images online and then type in silhouette or black and white images. You could also do as you get better if you like know how to do great. At one point, I want to do portraiture, but I'm really going to need something that has the ability to do a gradient from not burnt to all the way burnt with a good control. This isn't. I've done some gradient things, like the image that I have. I did some shading on Torgon's shield or his scroll. I'm sorry, but that was pretty much the first time that I had done that. Somewhere did my first time doing like a cartoon kind of image of a girl, like a cop, a sexy cop lady. And that was really easy because I had very like hard lines. I knew exactly where the black was going to go and stuff like that. So, I mean, whatever your interests are in doing, whether it be video games, cartoons, I would stay away from things with a face, or hands until you're like a skilled artist with those things, because anything with a face becomes really easy to determine. Like if you're trying to go for realism, um, like if you're doing a bear, for example, it's going to be really easy to tell if something is not right with the face. You could do silhouette, which is just completely black, and that'll probably be a lot easier. Yes. That's really neat. That makes sense. Being that it's kismet. Yeah, I mean, if you're making something for someone else, it could almost be easier to find things and inspiration to pull from. So like I had no idea what the hell I was going to wood burn for today. And Cody said that he wanted something Monster Hunter, and he gave me this image. And my only qualms about it was the fact that I knew that it was going to take a long time. If it were just me, I probably would have done something Zelda-y or but I mean I do enjoy wood burning. And so if there's stuff that, if anyone ever wants to commission something wood burned for like presents for other people or for themselves that you think could be wood burned, I could help come up with some ideas um, to see if that's something that you want to have done. But I'm always down to like teach if people have any like questions in the future, if this is a medium that you decide that you want to pick up and start doing. um, I'm always down to tell you the pros and cons of different images. uh, this one is a son of a bitch though, I won't lie. I know Torgan also does wood burning for like his park for giving out awards too. So that's always an option you could do as individual parks if you wanted to do something really special instead of printing on just paper to give an award. If there's something out there that's a bit more recognizable that you want to give on a like a kingdom level or a park level for awards, this is a great option. You know, people can do the wood burning and then put it up on their wall. Represent to the whole world how nerdy they are. I've had that happen sometimes, but it's really not super like a big issue that I've had. Like if it's displacing the heat from my pen onto the wood too quickly, then it may burn less hot, which means that, you know, if I'm trying to shade and I'm going to displace a lot of heat right now, and as I'm going, if I go too fast, it's not that displacement of the heat, like it's not able to be hot enough. But if I know I want this dark, like whatever, I'll just go back over it, slow down. And I'm going in when I'm shading and I'm going in these kind of circular motions, I'm trying to not let the heat press down into the wood because you can indent just from like sitting in here and it'll just go kind of deeper and deeper into the wood. And you can't really see that on screen. It's really super minimal even too, but it's stuff that I look at as a perfectionist. I wonder, you can see how I go fast with that line, how it didn't burn as well. If I go slower, I'm allowing the pen to keep up with the heat that it needs to and getting a pretty even line like that. Does that answer your question? I jump around a lot, so you're going to see me do that. And if you did wood burning at Dungeon Day, you were actually using this pen. These triangles, I'm just starting to fill them in on the top of the triangle. If I go too far to the bottom with this angle, it's possible that I could actually start burning the wood just from the proximity of the pen to the wood. I mean, and it's like, and you can feel the heat on it. If you wanted to do more abstract stuff, nature is really good to do. Like, I had a tree. So this is a tree that I did also on Torgen's scroll. I basically did the base of it, and then I just went to town with texture. I really, really love texture as part of the wood burning. So when you have like the base of your tree, and this is all, you'll imagine that'll get filled in, and just really kind of playing with the tip kind of abstractively. Because if you mess up and you're like, ah, damn it, I didn't want that dot there, no one's going to know. Because nature is pretty. Already. No one's going to know. I'm just a little happy tree. This is kind of like, if you were to imagine this tattooing wise, what I'm doing here is almost a technique called stippling, which is just basically doing a picture with a bunch of dots. That's kind of what I did there. Let's see. I kind of did something fun for me. Like doing the wing of a bird. So with this one, I think I used a different tip. But once I got like my image out here for these big feathers, I was doing some texture with it. I just started making little kind of feather texture. And I mean, it's a lot more filled in. It's something that you'd have to like look up really closely to. Where am I? Here we go. I'm not sure if you can see the texture kind of makes like indents into the wood. like most about this art is that I think it could be really great for beginners because I think in drawing and learning how to draw, one of the first things that I did as a kid was traced everything. I traced everything I could. Um, Cartoons. I used to draw a whole bunch of horses, and I just would trace everything. And as you trace more, you start to get kind of a muscle memory for it, and then you don't need to trace as much. So I think doing this is actually really good as a beginner drawing artist. Um, you just find an image. You don't have to really get that artistic, but you're still learning hand-eye coordination with your pen. And just because it just doesn't take a whole lot of money to do something like this, it just takes time. Like $20 with a coupon, Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. I feel like even probably Tandy Leather probably has a kit. I wouldn't be surprised. Um, yeah, like that doesn't surprise me. Zach Augustine was here last night, and I was teaching him how to make a flower crown. And as I was wood burning and doing my own thing, he had showed me that he actually did a wood burning pen on leather, and it kind of had like a tooled leather look to it. It was really neat. You can actually also solder things with this too. Yes, sir. I would say that's actually probably a really good terminology to know. Pyrography is if you're looking for ideas and you just go into Google and you can see all the different things that people have done with this. Um, I'm pretty sure I've used that in my search things. It's pyrography ideas, and you can see a bunch of different ideas. I would say if you're starting off doing it, not do something you're super committed to because you're going to mess up more than you want, and it may not be something that you want to give to someone else, or like understand that when you first start doing it, that whatever you start doing is all practice runs. And then once you get the hang of it and you actually feel confident, that's when I would move to something you're a little bit more invested to. As you can see, um, right here, those two little marks I made a like a big black spot here. Because I have it specifically tipped this way into the dark area, I know that's going to happen, and that's exactly how I want to position when I'm laying it down because I know that's going to happen that way. I get a little bit more finicky when the things are smaller, like this line right here. I do it more up and down. So that way I try not to burn this white spot here like I did over here. I think I have some kind of burnishings here, there, and around here. Just a light, super light sanding on that is really going to take that away. And depending on how much you're pressing down, like I wouldn't take a sandpaper and go across the whole thing, but just like a little tiny bit and just flake off the surface there. What time is it? Anyone know?
It's 10 minutes till court.
Does anyone have any questions for me? We can just wrap this puppy up. Of course, I'm not done. I knew I was not going to be.
When you get when you get closer, or when you get done, obviously, like the darker parts, you could smudge that. You talked about the sandpaper to take that off. Do you put like a clear coat on it or something like that to keep that from happening down the road? Like,
So
I guess I'm
if
asking about finishing.
there's a couple different things that you can do. You could put a stain over this and darken up the rest of it. Like if I was to do something kind of like this color, the table, you could do a stain. You're not going to want to do anything paint based because anything paint is just going to cover up the black, but stains work really well. And then you can do I think I have a finishing coat, polypropylene or something like that, that I use on all of my wood surfaces that finishes off pretty matte looking. And that helps kind of protect the wood from yeah. So it helps kind of protect the wood from any discolorations. But you can, if you want, you could leave this completely bare if you wanted to, just nude wood. You don't have to put any protectant on it. It's really a personal choice. But I would say if anyone in the future decides that they want to take up this craft and that they have any questions, feel free to find me on Facebook Messenger. My real name is Ambrosia Peterson. I have been doing art my whole life. I went to college for art. I really, really love to teach, so I'm hoping to do a lot more teaching things in the future. I have some ideas on, like a drawing one kind of quick class that would help with people's drawing skills. But if anyone has any artistic questions as far as like this kind of physical medium, I'm not really that good on the technology side of art. But when it comes to drawing, painting, wood burning, stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me. So thank you for coming because I was super nervous.